Welcome to Take a Wander with Shebs. Now my guest today is Alida Lupari.
My discussion with Alida revolved around her business, Ali Travelpoints, and how she got started. All of that and much more.
So let's take a look.
Alida, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Shebs?
I'm doing fantastic. Just for people who don't know who you are, just explain a little bit about yourself.
I am originally from Panama, born and raised, and I moved abroad at an early age for a short period of time and then moved back to my home country. And after a while, came back to the U.S. for college. So I went to school for finance and became a financial planner and had a very successful career with a wealth management firm to this day for over 20 years. And now my husband and I run it as a family business, but I actually retired last year to pursue this passion and, of course, continue to raise my 3 kids. But my family is still all in Panama. So that is my biggest, passion is to continue to see them. And so I love to travel. So my passion is to travel and using travel points and credit cards.
Well, we'll come on to a little bit more about your business slightly later, but I want to take it back. So you mentioned you were from Panama and you moved across to the US. So just explain your early sort of beginnings and how you fell in love with travel itself.
Well, like I mentioned that I moved to the US in the 80s. I was only 8, so it wasn't by choice. It was really out of necessity because back in that time, for those that know any of the Central American history, we had a dictator called Noriega, and my family had to shut down their businesses. There was really a terrible economic situation. Banks were closed. My sister was 2 months old, and just to give you an idea, you couldn't even pay for the hospitals with credit cards. You had to pay cash because banks were shut down. So a lot of instability led to our family moving abroad and starting over. So I saw a lot of rebuilding from a very early age. So my family was very good about saving money, learning about coupons, finding sales, and just finding as many deals as you can just to continue to save for our future and improve the situation. But because we flew back and forth to Panama, we would always have to find, other ways of saving money, to be able to get there. And eventually, once we saved up for, let's say, a bigger vacation, my mom and stepdad, they took me to Europe for the first time when I was a teenager. So I fell in love with just seeing the architecture, the different way of life. I went to Paris and London, and I hadn't been back to London until 30 years later. So you just never know when you'll be able to go back to the places you went to the first time. So I always think back and think, okay, if I never get to go back there again, what would I have wanted to do? So that's always been the main inspiration of any place that I go to that's different. I'm like, well, what is there to do or learn about in that place, in that country, in that destination that I couldn't do anywhere else? And so I just became an adventure seeker everywhere.
I guess a lot of people who are born and raised in the US sometimes don't realize how difficult it is for migrants to come in and to adjust, especially at a slightly later age as well. 8 is actually, it's a developing age, of course, but obviously you missed out on 4 or 5 years worth of speaking English and sort of picking up the sort of language and stuff. Would you say those were sort of like the core period where you were determined to succeed and I guess please your parents?
Oh, absolutely. Because my mom invested. I remember her buying a set of VHS tapes for me to learn English. And that was my job, chore, and homework every day. And we lived in a hotel for 2 months while they were finding where we were going to live. So thankfully, that hotel had a VCR player. So I was able to have my little classes while they were finding, where we were going to settle. I had no idea what that meant. I just knew that I had to learn it so that I could be accepted in school. And my parents had to make the sacrifice to place me in a small private school so that I can get a little bit more attention and adapt easier. So by 6 months later, I was fluent and made the honor roll.
You talked about getting your education and qualifying as a financial planner. So firstly, what was the reason why you went down the financial route? Did you have specifically plans to sort of do this? Obviously, you said you retired as well, but what was the reason behind that and not necessarily something else?
Very good question. Because of the circumstances I lived through and the situations that you may not be able to control as a child and growing up and coming from a place of scarcity and always having to save for the future, save for the rainy days, save for, not having to depend on anyone or any government. So my family always instilled that you need to invest for the future. The way that my family always did it was by way of putting money in the bank in what they called plazo fijo, which means a CD or certificate of deposit, which is essentially like a bond, but owned by the bank, and they pay you an interest rate, very little. And the other option is to buy real estate, which is the first thing that they did in Panama. They took the money they had saved and bought their first piece of real estate. And then maybe you can rent it and get income from that. And that, in a roundabout way, is the thought of the perfect retirement for somebody in Panama. Now, I grew up in the US as a child, I would say, in my development years. And I remember movies that I would watch, people on Wall Street and the stocks and bonds. And that was exhilarating, how you can make money by investing in other companies that do well and learn, how that all worked. And it looked like it was very confusing and it took a lot of expertise. So I went about to find out what do you need to study to learn how to do that on your own? And if I could do it professionally and do it for other people, then that can be my career. So that's how I determined I wanted to study finance, because I wanted to learn how to invest my own money and grow and be in control of my own finances forever.
Did you enjoy it? I mean, it's a field that you said you've now retired from. It seems like at a very early age. So you've done very well with it. Did you enjoy the work that you were doing as a financial planner? And how did you get to the position to retire so early as well?
With a lot of planning. Okay, well, I built a business from scratch. As I mentioned, the marketing fell on me to do as much or as little as I wanted to do to build my career. So really it became a business of marketing. How do you gain clients to build a practice? And then you have to service those clients. And that requires also another set of other time to be allotted to that. So we brought on another partner, and we also have another assistant as we grew, because we needed help managing all the clients that we had. And over time, of course, as we increased our portfolio of clients that we managed their assets for, we also increased our income streams, which, because of the way that we know how to take advantage of tax benefits, the more money you save in different areas that are more tax advantageous, to take also more growth for yourself. So all those loopholes I became a master of. And so I grew from zero to a lot by offering free workshops on retirement planning to corporate employees. So that's what grew our business to a level where we could scale. And along the way, I continue to invest in real estate and invest in properties that I can borrow for very low, which is using leverage, which a lot of people are afraid of borrowing from banks. But because we work for a very large bank, I get very low rates and I can rent it out and get much higher income stream from that money that I just borrowed for free. In addition to that, you can use, and this just depends on what is offered in your country and the laws, but in our case, we can use our investment portfolios as collateral for the loans for the purchases of other properties. So we can do that for investment properties or our own primary residences. So every time that we moved, we kept the properties that we lived in and we continued to keep them, rent them, and eventually sell them for a profit. And then the profit gets invested and sheltered more for taxes and continue to grow. So all along the way, we do have financial planning tools at our disposal, which is very good, which is what we use for our clients on helping them meet their future retirement goals and see if their money is going to last as long as they will. Because that's really what it comes down to. So we look at cash flow all the way to investments and everywhere in between.
To be in a position, it would have been hard work, a lot of hours, a lot of sleepless nights, I assume, and to get, because you can't get to a position like where you are without the hard work. I think that's come across from what you were just saying there. There's a lot of effort that's gone into it, and to be in the position, as I said to you, to retire, that's unbelievable, and which has now led me to your other passion now, which is to travel. And by the way, just before I go into your business, did you get time to travel whilst you were doing all the? I assume you're working 7 days a week. It's your own business. Did you get time to travel? Because it doesn't sound like there was much. What do you call it? Downtime.
Not at first. Quick fact: when I first started in the company, I started in the call center, very basic, almost below minimum wage, almost. But because I spoke Spanish, I got an extra $1,000 a year. And then I worked a lot of overtime. And then I evolved to then start my practice on my own in the same company once I had learned all their tools. So the year that I scaled into, now I'm doing this as my own business within the company, that was the year we got married. And my husband and I had made the decision, and we said, okay, you're starting this business, which is going to require a lot of dedication, a lot of time, a lot of extra hours, unpaid work until later. So we decided we were going to wait on having a family until I could make sure I met all the goals for the company to deem worthy of me staying and keeping my job, because I was under like a training program for 2 years. So I had hurdles I had to meet. Otherwise, only 3 people finished out of my entire class of 30. So
Wow.
I needed
Tough field.
And it was in 2008 when I finished, right when the market really took a tank. And then that was the year I was pregnant with my first. So we did not take vacations. We did not take a honeymoon until after. So really, we brought our son along with us almost everywhere. And there's 8 years apart from him and the second, and then 10 years to the third. So there was a lot of traveling with at least one child in between. And I just made it a priority because I needed that for my passion to be filled. Yeah. Otherwise, we're just working to live, or are we living to work?
This is the thing, you see. So I've spoken to guests in the past from America, and the mentality is to live to work. But the mentality in Europe, UK, is you work to live. And we get a lot more vacation times here. So we get minimum, in the UK anyway, it's like 5 weeks. A lot of us get 6 to 8 weeks, potentially 12 weeks. So it's a lot of time. And that's why I was asking you, did you get time off? Because when I tell my American friends, I get like X amount of time off and so on, so does, and they're like, oh my God, we only get like 2 days off and stuff. So you can fall into a bit of a work loop, and then you don't realize this is your life. And obviously things come along and whatnot. But that's why I was trying to figure out whether you had the time to travel. But it sounds like you had everything sort of planned. And I guess being a financial planner, you sort of have that sort of mindset anyway. So you call yourself a travel points guru. So just explain to me and people listening what your business entails.
I must say, that's what my friends call me. So they made me put that on my title.
Okay.
But with that being said, I love using credit cards, and as far as using credit cards for free travel. And what that means is for my everyday spending, I just love accumulating points for free travel and teaching people how to earn those points, but not just 1 point per dollar, how to maximize those points, earn more, do a lot of stacking by different methods, and be able to transfer those points to airline partners. Now, the key is not just earning and maximizing those points, but it's also how do you best redeem those points for the free travel that you want for the lowest amount of points, because I'm also saving my points because now I travel with 5 of us. So if you want an experience in economy or in business or where you want to go, I've been helping my family and friends go to destinations they never even dreamed of for free. And I'm the one doing all the searches, and I look for deals on points across 4 or 5 different airlines to find which one am I going to send my points to. So that became what I live and breathe. So it became something that I was just inspired to do last year, to just really put it down on the internet and somehow create a way that I can answer my friends' questions. And then I started making Instagram videos and reels and little tutorials. So I tell them, oh, this is how you shop online and earn extra points. Here's the video. Or here's how to use your Amex card and transfer the points to, let's say, British Airways, because that's a main hub for the UK. And British Airways is one of my favorite redemptions for certain things. So knowing those little tricks is great. And then it's just a trial and error. So because it became my hobby and my passion, I just decided to put organized content around it, and also promote destinations that are off the beaten path and awesome adventures, because I'm an adventure mom.
Cool.
So I love sharing that with anyone. And I love inspiration that people ask me questions, or I also take requests of destinations and help people book it virtually.
So for example, let's just say I started using a credit card, it was giving me points. What would I do? So if I came to you and said, right, okay, I've seen your website, it says you can get points for free fares. How would you help me then in that instance?
If you want help for a particular destination that you want to get to,
Mm-hmm.
we can book like a quick chat, and I can ask you some questions. Well,
Okay.
depending on where you accumulate those points or where you want to go, you have to start out with a plan.
Okay.
Because
so the initial thing, you get a consultation. You get a consultation from yourself. I assume that's free consultation first. You
Yeah.
get. Is that correct? Yep.
I don't know if I can help you.
But you would want to find out whether you can help or can't help.
Right.
And I assume, is it a specific type of clientele that you'd be after then in that instance? If someone like myself who doesn't use credit card, would I not qualify?
Well, I would like to give information on how you go about from beginners to booking it. So if you'd like to learn how you can go on free travel, like I would like to know why or what's your hesitation, so that maybe that would be the one-on-one call is tell me on why I need to consider using an American Express UK version for free travel. Where do you want to go? And then I would ask you, where do you want to go next year? Or as soon as you're able to travel. And let's say you say Japan, and I say, okay, well, let me see how many points it costs to get you there. Do you want to go in economy or in business? And based on where you're coming from and where you're going, and do you want to make any stops along the way? So I will do a research and come back with some results and tell you this is the amount of points you will probably need to accumulate. And these are some potential cards you may qualify for to get those points to get you that free destination. Now, on the flip side, once you have the points accumulated and you're like, okay, well, I did my job in accumulating the points. How do I go about booking it?
Mm.
And because I cannot go into your frequent flyer account, I can't take those points from you. You can't send them to me or any of that. I will do a side-by-side virtual screen sharing, help you click here, book here, search here. Yeah. So a lot of different ways just to make sure that people know how to do it and don't waste those points. There's a lot of wrong ways to use those points.
I assume by spending, when you say spend points, it means you go buy things, shopping, all that. Is that how you accumulate points, or do you
earning them by
earning them?
everyday spending?
From that advice that you would give, I assume obviously they would have you as a one-to-one, and this is where you would charge a fee. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and on my Instagram, I have my link in bio, and then on my website, I have a few options of how you can reach me, and then we can discuss what would be the best thing that you would need, and it can just be an hourly rate based on how many searches you might need or how much assistance. So it all depends, and I would let people know how much the service would require, and it's just based on the time it would need. I just want people to learn a little bit better on how to use them. And what I would say to accumulating the points, a lot of countries will have their own banks offer their own sign-up bonuses for the cards that they offer locally. So American Express will have a UK version of the offer that in the US is different, but the UK may give you 10, 20, 30,000 sign-up bonus points if you meet a certain amount of spending in a certain amount of time. So that also goes into the planning and seeing, well, what's available maybe in your area, in your region. In the US, I, of course, have referral links that I can provide, but abroad, you can search locally. Now, what's the same for anyone in the world is how the airline partners charge for the flights. Will be the same no matter what. So British Airways, no matter where I live in the world, will charge me the same amount of miles if I book it versus if you book it for the same route. So the way that you transfer the points to the airlines could be different. So that will vary based on the country and the card that you can get. But as long as you can get the British Airways points, a lot of internal flights in Europe cost under 5,000 points from one country to another in British Airways. And those flights are like $200 sometimes. So for 5,000 points in British Airways, I can book that. You can book that. You just have to figure out how you can get points to British Airways. So American Express lets you move points to British Airways, and British Airways offers their own version of their credit card in the UK and in the US. They have two branded versions, and they both have different sign-up bonuses. So it's how to use those sign-up bonuses to add to your total amount that you need to get to where you want to go.
And at the minute, is it just specific airlines? Like you mentioned British Airways. Are there any other, or is it all airlines that maybe take on board points? Or because I know Emirates do, Qatar have points, Etihad have points, or is it just specific airlines at this current moment that you only deal with?
So most, just the airlines that have frequent flyer programs, and the ones that belong to an airline alliance.
Okay.
Because if I want to fly Lufthansa, but I cannot move points to Lufthansa's frequent flyer program, I can move points from one of my cards to, say, United Airlines.
Yep.
And because they're part of the alliance, the Star Alliance with Lufthansa, then I can book Lufthansa flights using United miles.
Of course.
Using United's award chart.
Okay, and the Star Alliance there's quite a lot of people who don't know. There's a lot of airlines within those groups. So I remember I flew with Turkish Airlines. It will say a part of the Star Alliance group. So if you look at, so for people listening, again, if you look at next time when you fly, just look at what it says beneath. It will say Star Alliance group and stuff.
Mhm.
So that's how you would know.
And you can look up on Wikipedia too, or just Google what alliance is my home country's airline a part of. My home country is Panama, so my home airline is Copa. So Copa has their frequent flyer program, but they're also part of the Star Alliance.
Alliance.
So I can book Copa flights using another Star Alliance partner, following their rules and how much they charge. And you have to search different days, and there's a lot of playing around. I have a whole log I keep when I search for the same destination. I search in different ways, and I do this all before I send the points. So there's a couple of shortcuts that I share with people so that they know how to do some of the legwork themselves, because that will determine when you travel. Because you might, I keep my calendar flexible when I'm going abroad using points. That's the number one rule, because you might not be able to go for the amount of points you need to spend on the day that you want to go, or the route that doesn't take a whole day. So you have to look at different dates and maybe different route combinations. So that will go into my award search service.
Of course. And the other thing I was going to say, you might not necessarily save them an entire flight, but it's a discounted rate as well, by the way. If you couldn't necessarily meet the rate of getting a free flight, I assume people will be still happy to pay. Instead of paying $300, you're paying $100. That's still better than paying $300, isn't it? Really?
Yes. And a lot of the vacations, even mine, it's not 100% covered with points.
Okay.
That's just not realistic. And that would require a lot of points.
And that's the thing, I'm assuming you tell people before you go in, right, listen, it's not going to be, right, you're going to get free flights everywhere. There's going to be a time where you may have to pay, an X amount, but we will try and get you to a point where you don't have to pay the full lot. And what would you rather do? Pay the full price or pay less of it?
I save the money that I save by using points. I allow us to indulge in better experiences sometimes, if that makes sense. And then every day I'll maybe splurge on something that we can do, that we can explore, because those are things you can't pay with points anyway. And for hotels, in the days of Airbnbs now, I think it's almost too expensive to use points for hotels, because I can get way more value for those points and get a business or first class ticket on a very long flight that would otherwise be thousands of dollars, as opposed to just getting 2-3 nights in a hotel. So what would you rather? And that's where you make decisions on, okay, I'll use my points here, but not here. And I'll use some of my money this way. And then which card do you use for what you are using the money for? So that you get 3 points per dollar on travel expenses that you are paying out of pocket.
And what challenges do you face with this business? What sort of challenges have you faced already, and what have you got lined up that you're struggling with? Would you say that you're trying to sort of accomplish?
My challenges is organizing and making the time to really put it all together, and determining if I need to set up a course or start off with workshops. So that's what I'm wondering, is if maybe start a small community with some small workshops that I can eventually repurpose into a full course, and work on destinations that people want to learn how to get to with points. So my challenge is putting that all in an organized way that I can tackle.
How much have you been able to travel as a family? Because I had a couple for my very first show actually, and they talked about being nomads on the road, and they're literally traveling as a family and homeschooling and whatnot. Has that potentially entered into your mind? I assume you want to do this long term. So that's another question. So what is the aim for this business? Where do you want it to go? Where do you see it?
I can help people go from beginners to actual booking their own award flights, that would be my goal. So whether it be in workshops that they can do and work on their own as practice, or a course that could be delivered to people on demand, to learn, really, because I feel like the biggest challenge is that there is so much to know that people get discouraged or think that this is a scam or it's too good to be true or it's too complicated. And there is a lot to know, but there is help out there. You just have to find some consolidated places that will teach you. So hopefully, I could be the Latina Points Girl one day, and also promote my country and adventure travel in Panama, because it's a hidden gem that a lot of people are not familiar with.
And what about the traveling with the family? Have you found that difficult with work? And is that something that you want to do more and more? Or actually, I guess they're slightly older. They get to a certain age where you could do it more frequently.
If I am going anywhere for more than 3 days, I will take them with us. And
Okay.
I usually do somewhere that is kid friendly, that we can incorporate them into the travel plans. So the activities will really revolve around the youngest person in the group or the oldest person in the group. And that goes for group travel, whether it's kids or older people. And so, with that being said, I just think that you can figure out what works for your family. But for mine, I just already know what they like and they don't like, and how much time they can be in a stroller before they have to get out. And it can be chaotic sometimes, but really the memories that you make, you just take pictures, and one day they'll thank you for all those adventures you took them on, and you'll think, oh, that was chaos, but it was actually very memorable, because otherwise we wouldn't have experienced XYZ. And a lot of people tend to not travel or go to places because they have kids, or they don't want to leave them behind, or they don't trust anyone to stay with them, or they'll miss them too much, or whatever the reason is. Just bring them.
When you've got family, there is a possibility, because a lot of people, well, I used to think anyway, if you started having families, that's it. For 10, 15 years, no travel. Once that time is up. But from what you're saying, it's possible as long as you plan it ahead. I guess it's the same thing as the financial planning. If you plan ahead, then anything's possible.
Absolutely. And also for me, I don't really have a choice not to take my kids along
Of
for
course,
the ride,
yeah.
because my family is abroad.
Hmm.
So for them to know my family, I have to take them. That would have been the only way for them to meet my grandparents and, a lot of extended family. I have big extended family, and only a few of them were able to come to the wedding. Otherwise,
Okay.
if I wouldn't take my kids to them, they would otherwise not know all those cousins, or primos, as we call them.
One more question about your business. Competitors. Are there any competitors in the field? How challenging is that?
I learned all about points and miles from a long time ago by reading a lot of blogs that are now very big and very widespread, well-known names now, and they've become too large sometimes to maybe connect with, and now they have huge editorial teams and things like that. So I feel that for us smaller content creators, it takes a little bit longer maybe to get out there and be discovered, or really make a difference. But I try not to look at what anybody else is doing, because I'm such a creative person. I try to think of, well, maybe can I do it this way, or how can I, even on my Instagram, I just try to come up with different designs, and my style is my own. The content may be similar to a lot of others because I learned it from others or from somewhere. So I love collaborating with anyone else in the Points and Miles community, just so that we can teach other people, because that's how I learned. And I'm a self-taught person just in general.
Of course.
And so if I can put it together in an organized way, or have a community course from other experts, including what I know, that would be a dream.
What one place would you say has transformed the way you've lived, actually? Is it Panama? When you moved across to the US, did you feel as though that was your big transformative travel experience?
Yes, because of the way that I had to adapt to the culture. I took it actually as you would as a child, very excited, very eager to learn, very naive to just anything that would come my way. I came from a place of, giving any opportunity that comes your way, giving it a chance or exploring. And anytime that you can travel and explore whatever's available to you, do it. So when we moved abroad, even though that was because of an unfortunate circumstance, I feel like it helped mold the ability that I have now to be open to all different cultures and languages and foods and just everything that goes with moving from one country to another. So a lot of ups and downs too, don't get me wrong. You miss your family and you miss things that you're used to. And that's why there are planes to go back.
What does travel mean to you? What would you say?
Being open to adventure and experiences and cultures and being able to see what God created in this world for us to see. So being fortunate to explore it and making it part of your life is what I feel fills my heart, in addition to my family, of course.
Away from your travel, work, and everything, do you have anything that you sort of relax with? Have you got any hobbies that you like to do?
Well, along with my content creation, I'm an avid photographer, and thanks to Christine, I got my first drone.
Oh, fantastic.
And so I'm also creating content for tourism industry with photography and drones. So that I love. And to relax, I also practice yoga and Pilates.
Christine, just as a reference, is Christine Lazada. I actually had her on my show. If you want to go back and listen to the episode, she did talk to me a lot about her drones. So, in fact, that's how we actually connected through Christine. Yeah, we've come to the end of our discussion. It's been fabulous having you on. Just tell everyone where they can find you.
Sure. Well, I'm on Instagram at Ali Travelpoints and on my website, www.alitravelpoints.com, starting my new blog soon. And so hopefully I'll take some inspiration from any destinations that people want to go to. I use them as practice and then it helps me.
Well, Alida, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I'll speak to you very soon.
Thank you so much, Shebs. It was great.
A fantastic discussion, and if you'd like to save some money on your travels, get in touch with Alida. All of the details are on your screen now. That's it for Take a Wander with Shebs. Hope to see you all very soon. Until next time, bye for now.